The first medals in Tokyo for Team GB on day 2 of Olympic action. It was Chelsea Giles who kicked off the medals table with a bronze in judo.
To come away with a medal and it to be the first for the Team GB is really special.
In Taekwondo, Bradley Sinden came agonisingly close to Olympic glory, but ended his final with a silver.
It's got me that I didn't win gold where I think it was there for me to take.
We'll have all the latest from Tokyo, including Andy Murray having to pull out of the singles tennis. Also on the programme, police warn of the dangers of open water after 3 people, including a 9-year-old, drown in Loch Lomond. And Sajid Javid apologises after facing criticism for saying people shouldn't cower from coronavirus. Good evening. Team GB have won their first medals of the Tokyo Olympics, a silver for Bradley Sinden in Taekwondo and earlier a bronze for Chelsea Giles in judo. There was disappointment, however, for Jade Jones, twice an Olympic champion, when she failed to progress beyond the first round of competition. And Andy Murray has had to pull out in the singles event due to injury. From Tokyo, here's our sports correspondent, Natalie Perks.
At the Makahari Messe Hall, Britain's Taekwondo players were chasing a place in the record books. Bradley Sinden is the reigning world champion at 68 kilos. He was desperate to become the first British man to win an Olympic title. But 19-year-old outsider Ulubeg Rashitov from Uzbekistan wasn't here to play.
And there's a kick to the head, 2 of them in a row.
The match swung back and forth, but Sinden was leading with just seconds of the match remaining.
Kick from Ulubeg Rashitov, tries a back kick.
But a Rashitov trunk kick meant Sinden had to go for it, and as his last gasp spin failed to connect, he knew the game and gold was up.
From Tashkent to Tokyo, he claims the Olympic title.
My coach always said silver's the first loser, the best loser, but no, maybe eventually I'll get over it, but for now it's got me that I didn't win gold.
Disappointment too back home in Doncaster, but from mum Cheryl, huge pride for her son on his Olympic debut.
I can't believe he's got a silver medal. It's an absolute massive achievement on top of obviously winning the Worlds. But I know he went for gold, so I know how disappointed he's going to be.
But this wasn't the only upset here today. Double Olympic champion Jade Jones was vying to become the first British woman to win gold at 3 different games, but today ended in tears.
Last-minute reassurance before starting her bid for history.
Well, they don't call her the headhunter for nothing. There is.
But the refugee team's Kimia Alizadeh Zanorin was the Rio bronze medalist and had beaten Jones in the past.
She's had the better of this second round.
In the final round it was close, but with seconds left.
It could be that the double Olympic champion is going out.
Jones's camp couldn't bear the tension, and as her dreams crumbled in round 1.
What an upset!
Jade's teammate and housemate Bianca Walkden was left just as devastated.
I felt scared, I felt just too much pressure, and then the whole tournament has just been obviously different to what I'm used to. Used to have my family there, so when I am scared coming out, you know, just them cheering for me gives me that extra push to go for it.
Over in the judo, though, Chelsea Giles was handed a medal lifeline in the repechage after losing in the earlier rounds. A bronze was still up for grabs for the world number 10, and boy, did she grab it.
It's all over. It's all over.
Britain's first medal of the Games at the spiritual home of her sport.
The bronze medal.
2 medals then on day 2 for Britain. What will day 3 bring? Natalie Perks, BBC News, Tokyo.
Close. He was leading.
And later in the programme, we'll have more from Tokyo, where our sports editor has been looking at other competitions and also at how Japan is viewing these games. Extreme caution is being advised for people considering swimming in lochs and rivers after several deaths in Scotland in the last 48 hours. They include a 9-year-old boy and 2 adults who drowned at Loch Lomond. Another child is in hospital. Police Scotland are warning that open water swimming can be extremely dangerous with the risk of deep water and hidden currents. Alexandra Mackenzie reports.
An idyllic location. Loch Lomond was busy as usual today, with many enjoying the scorching weather. But yesterday evening, it's believed that 2 adults and 2 young children got into difficulty in the water near Ardlui. A 9-year-old boy, a man and a woman died at the scene. Police said a 7-year-old boy was taken to hospital. This followed the death of a teenage boy also at Loch Lomond on Friday.
Those who run this stunning national park said this has been one of the worst weekends in its history. Police Scotland said the number of deaths is hard to comprehend and urged people to take care.
As many of us have been enjoying the recent heat wave, one charity said more than 30 people have drowned in the UK in the last 2 weeks.
Deep bodies of water rarely gets above 18 degrees. And if you can compare that to a swimming pool where people learn to swim, which is normally regulated at around 30 degrees, we can see that there's a huge gap in people's knowledge compared to swimming in a swimming pool and swimming in deep bodies of cold open water.
Also this weekend, in 2 separate incidents, an 11-year-old boy drowned in South Lanarkshire, and the body of a 13-year-old boy was recovered from a river in Lanark. Scotland's First Minister said it was heartbreaking. Alexandra Mackenzie, BBC News, Loch Lomond.
England's Health Secretary Sajid Javid has apologised for saying people shouldn't cower from the coronavirus, saying that it was a poor choice of word. It had been used in a tweet, since deleted, which was criticised by opposition parties and bereaved families. Meanwhile, ministers are considering requiring football fans to be fully vaccinated in order to attend Premier League matches. Ben Wright reports.
Good morning.
He's been Health Secretary for just a month.
Nice to meet you. My first visit to a hospital on the job.
But in a tweet announcing his own recovery from coronavirus yesterday, Sajid Javid said people should get vaccinated and learn to live with COVID rather than cower from the virus. The rebuke from opposition parties and bereaved families was swift.
We're very disappointed at yet another barbed comment from a minister of the government. We find the comments distasteful, disrespectful to our loss, and insensitive, quite frankly.
Labour said Sajid Javid had insulted the many people still shielding from COVID and trying to stay safe. And this morning the Health Secretary deleted his original tweet and said he was wrong to say cower. I was expressing gratitude that the vaccines help us fight back as a society, he wrote, but it was a poor choice of word and I sincerely apologise. But Mr Javid's bullish tone reflects a government pushing on with opening up England in the face of very high infections. About 70% of adults have now had both jabs, and ministers want to put pressure on younger people to get vaccinated. Earlier this week, the Prime Minister announced that vaccine passports would be used at nightclubs in England from the end of September. And a similar plan is being considered for Premier League football matches too. And talks between ministers and the league are at an early stage.
I think our members are reflective of the wider society, so there will be some who feel that this will give them the kind of reassurance they need in order to return safely to games. Equally, there'll be others who are opposed to it in principle.
Some events, like this weekend's Latitude Music Festival, required tests or proof of vaccination for entry. But making that mandatory for other large-scale indoor and outdoor events would be strongly opposed by some Tory MPs. The government has changed its tune on this, but now it's clear some freedoms will come with that condition. Ben Wright, BBC News.
Well, let's turn then to the latest figures on coronavirus, or at least some of them, because for the second day in a row, no data on deaths has been released due to technical difficulties. However, new infections recorded are down for a 5th consecutive day. Our health correspondent Jim Reid is here in the studios now. What are the numbers that we have, Jim?
Yes, Mishal. So the UK reported 173 further cases of COVID in the last 24-hour period. So that means the average of new cases in the last week is now at 38,268. So quite a sharp decline. As you say, the number of deaths has not been released today. In terms of vaccines, so more than 46.5 million people have now had their first jab of a COVID vaccine, and over 37 million people are now fully vaccinated.
On the new infections figures that you numbered, Jim, might they suggest that we could be past the peak of this third wave?
I mean, this is very encouraging news. There's no doubt about that. So 5 days in a row now of falling cases across the UK. But the last time we saw that at Scotland, about 3 weeks ago, scientists there saying it could be something to do with the football team in Scotland getting knocked out of the European Championships slightly earlier. Could be something to do with the earlier ending of the school term in Scotland. The interesting thing is that trend has continued in Scotland, and we're now starting to see it in other parts of the UK. One note of caution about England, though. So last Monday, we saw a fairly substantial unlocking of COVID restrictions. Nightclubs, for example, were allowed to open. We're just starting to see the impact of that. So it's the first weekend people have been allowed to take advantage of those new freedoms. So it's hard to know what impact that is going to have.
Jim Reid, thank you very much. We've had a series of reports in recent weeks on how disabled people have been affected by the pandemic. One issue raised has been access to healthcare in line with patient need and responsive to individual circumstances. More than 1,500 disabled people told BBC News that they felt worried about going into hospital. Hundreds said they would avoid it at all costs. Our Disability News correspondent Nikki Fox has been speaking to the family of one man who wanted to highlight his experience in hospital.
My Uncle Derek was really childlike. He was a lovely man.
He liked the simple things in life. He was my brother and I loved him.
This is Derek when he was younger. The 59-year-old was taken to hospital after falling ill late last year. He was diagnosed with cancer, which the family was told was treatable. While he was there, he caught COVID and died.
It went from him feeling unwell to being dead in such a short space of time.
Becky cared for Derek, but COVID restrictions around visitors meant she couldn't be there for him when he needed her. The family believed the treatment he received in hospital was different because Derek had a learning disability.
I told him I'd be up soon and he believed me with everything and I let him down.
Why do you feel you let him down?
Because he didn't have a voice. He couldn't tell people what was wrong with him and he could tell people through me and I kept him safe. I didn't even have the chance to stand with him and tell them how he felt.
I never spoke to one person that understood Derek's needs. I never spoke to one person that actually knew he had learning difficulties or brain damage. There was never anything in place for someone like Derek in hospital.
Just before Derek died, the family said they were told a do not resuscitate order was being placed on his medical records and that it was unlikely he would be given a ventilator. He died before there was a need for critical care. Becky saw him just before he passed.
He was unconscious on the bed, naked, soiled himself, lying on the very part of his brain that was brain damaged and that was painful for him to lie on. It just broke my heart to see him, and knowing that even when he's unconscious, he's lying in pain, because we knew he couldn't lie on that side of his head.
The Hospital Trust, Walsall Healthcare, said it's investigating the family's complaint and is extremely concerned about the issues raised. It said it is committed to improving the relationship between carers and healthcare professionals.
There's constant memories everywhere I look in the house, everywhere I go, every picture I look at. Every day, every song I hear, every film I see. Sorry.
The family say they'll only be at peace when they find out why Derek died the way he did. Nikki Fox, BBC News.
Sorry.
MPs have called the Armed Forces complaints process for sexual harassment or assault at work wholly inadequate. A report from the Defence Select Committee said 60% of female personnel had faced bullying, harassment and discrimination during their careers. The Ministry of Defence says many improvements have been made, but admits that women's experience isn't yet equal to men's. Heavy rain has caused flash flooding across London today. In the south of the city, cars were stranded as drains failed to cope with water surges. The storms caused damage to homes and gardens as well, as leaving several shops in the shopping centre at Stratford in East London flooded. And the skies above southern Norway were lit up for several seconds last night by an unusually large meteorite. There was a bright flash of light and also a booming sound. It's thought pieces of the meteorite came down in a wooded area west of Oslo. More now from Tokyo, where this has been the second day of competition at the Olympics. It brought medal success for Team GB, as you heard earlier. But our sports editor Dan Rowan has been looking at the competition elsewhere, including some of the events appearing for the first time.
It's images like these that organisers hope will attract younger audiences to the Games.
That was incredible.
And on its Olympic debut, skateboarding's already provided one of the stories of Tokyo 2020.
The Tokyo local, amazing.
At a scorching skate park, hometown favourite Yuto Origome making history by winning the sport's first gold medal in the men's street competition, just a few miles from where the 22-year-old world champion grew up.
Everyone's helped me, everyone's texted me you gotta go for it. I'm just so happy to bring the gold to my hometown.
Meanwhile, how's this for an overachieving family? On a fantastic day for the hosts, Japan's Uta Abe winning gold in the judo before older brother Hifumi did precisely the same just hours later in the same sport. Although Tunisian Ahmed Hafnoui provided one of the game's biggest shocks.
How has he done that?
The teenager winning gold in the men's 400-metre freestyle after qualifying slowest in a result that stunned the sport.
For three.
And as if that wasn't enough, for the first time since 2004, the US men's basketball team lost in the Olympics, France pulling off a famous victory in a blow to the Americans' hopes of a fourth consecutive gold medal. After so much opposition to these games, organisers will now be hoping that public enthusiasm is ignited by the gold medals that the hosts have won this opening weekend. Team GB have also, of course, opened their account now, but elsewhere today, they experienced mixed fortunes. Andy Murray will not defend his tennis singles title here. The two-time champion forced to withdraw with a quad strain before playing his first-round match. The 34-year-old choosing instead to focus on the men's doubles alongside Joe Salisbury, having been advised not to compete in both events. There had been hopes for Lizzie Dynan in the women's road race, but the British cyclist could only manage 11th as Austrian outsider Anna Kiesenhofer
We've got the biggest upset we've ever seen in women's cycling in the Olympic Games.
Launched a remarkable solo breakaway to claim gold. Adam Peaty remains on course to become the first British swimmer to retain an Olympic title as he breezed into the 100 metres breaststroke final. The world record holder qualified fastest and will go for gold in the early hours of tomorrow morning.
I'm the best racer in the world, I think, so I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I wanted to be a little bit quicker this morning, but hey-ho, it's a morning swim. You never know what you're going to get.
Few dominate in their sport like Peaty, and after a day of surprises, it would need a huge one for the overwhelming favourite to be denied. Dan Rowan, BBC News, Tokyo.
Well, there's more throughout the evening on the BBC News channel, and I'll have the late news at 10 o'clock tonight. Now on BBC One, the news, wherever you are. Goodbye.